How many of you know someone who overuses hashtags? You're sitting next to them, just kind of point to them right now. This week I made a list of hashtags that we can all agree that we need to stop using, all right? If you've been living, let's say, with the Amish for the last 15 years, a hashtag is basically a symbol you put before a word that you want to be able to search on social media. And this week I made a list of hashtags that we need to let die a very, very quick death. One is hashtag foodie. How many of our friends, they put this? It's like, they'll show a picture of a bowl of cereal, right? And then suddenly they have their own cooking show for the world, right? And they'll also use hashtag food porn. This is another one that needs to die, just as stupid as hashtag foodie. Hashtag selfie. Can we all agree if you're on social media and you take a selfie, everyone knows what a selfie is in 2017, right? Like, we don't need to do that. How many of you have friends that use hashtag sorrynotsorry? Like, are you sorry? Are you not sorry? Or is this just an excuse to be mean, right? Now, here's one that definitely needs to die. How many of you have friends that will take a picture or a selfie of themselves and they'll put hashtag no filter, right? Those of you who are on Instagram, those of you who aren't on Instagram know that a hashtag filter, no filter means, in Instagram you have settings where you're able to take pictures and make them look better by using pre-established filters. And so basically by them saying they're not using a filter, they're basically saying, wow, look how beautiful this is, or look how beautiful I am, without even a filter on Instagram. For instance, Matt Silver, one of our associate pastors here on staff, this is a picture of Matt with a filter. All right, looks wonderful, but this is the exact same picture without the filter, right? So, big difference. Big difference. Well, finally, wouldn't you agree that the most overused and annoying hashtag there ever was has to be hashtag blessed? Don't you find that annoying when someone has something good happen to them and they put hashtag blessed? In fact, on Instagram, there have been 82 million photos to date that have been taken and then tagged with hashtag blessed. Second only to hashtag blessed praying hands emoji, right? Which is just as good. Now think about that. Every little thing that happens in your life is somehow a blessing from God. Because you think about this, the biblical understanding of blessing is that there's the all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe that enters into our time, space, dimension and supernaturally intervenes on your behalf to give you a great salad at Applebee's. Right? Hashtag blessed. The problem with this is that people recognize that it's sort of like in extreme situations where people truly feel blessed. Like they'll take a picture when they're on vacation, or they'll be driving a new car, or they'll be in a new house, or there'll be some form of technology. Say it's like, the iPhone 10, hashtag blessed, hashtag October was Pastor Appreciation Month, hashtag hint, okay? So isn't it, but I always find it not coincidental that by and large, whenever someone is on a vacation, or they're driving a new car, or they're in front of their new house, or they're using a piece of technology, and they use the hashtag blessed, what they're not also saying is what happened was the only reason they were able to get those things is because they went into debt to get them. The average American, the 82 million times that hashtag has been used in this country, by and large, that cup of coffee at Starbucks, that car, that vacation, that home is financed. And it's reflective of a very skewed understanding of what it means to be blessed. So far removed from what the Bible talks about blessing actually being. I don't know if you're conversant with the most current fact on debt in the United States. The average American, the Americans altogether carry right now about $890 billion in credit card debt, which means if you were alive when Jesus was born and you spent $1 million every single day, you still will not have spent $890 billion. That's how much debt that is. Right now, there are more than 600 million active credit cards in the United States. The average American household has $16,000 just in credit card debt. That doesn't take into consideration student loan debt. That also doesn't take into consideration car loans or other kinds of consumer debt, in addition to that, mortgages or second mortgages. 1 out of every 7 Americans has at least 10 credit cards. How many do you have? A lot of us are stuck with debt, and it weighs on us, and it's an actual burden that's carried around. And so what I want you to do is I want you to imagine what it would be like waking up tomorrow and you had no debt, none. None. It was completely gone. Imagine all your student loans paid off. Credit cards gone, cars gone, homes gone. What would your life look like if you had absolutely no debt? That is God's vision for your life. When it comes to just money per se, that's God's blessing for your life. That's where He wants to take you. I don't know if you know this. Our great-grandparents considered debt a sin. Do you remember talking to your great-grandparents? Like they used the envelope system. They kept it, my grandma kept it in her purse, you know. You didn't take out debt. Your great-grandma never bought stuff on debt. They never bought stuff they couldn't afford. Now, Christian financial writer Ron Blue told a story about an 80-year-old man that went into his office for a consultation. The man had just retired from a job where he never made more than $8,000 a year in any given year. This guy just happened to be a pastor. And the aging pastor, when he turned 80 and retired, wanted to go to Ron Blue and find out, do I have enough money to retire? Am I going to have enough money to basically live on until I die? So he sat down with Ron, and Ron feared the worst. Now, let me just pause here and ask you this question. What percentage of people do you believe reach age 65 and they're actually able to retire? They've saved enough money that their money is going to be able to sustain them all the way through their retirement until they die. What percentage? Lean over to the person next to you, take a quick guess. So out of 100 people, would you say it's 80%, 70%, 60%? Only 2% of Americans reach age 65 financially independent. 2%. 30% must depend on charity. 23% must continue to work. 45% must continue to receive help from relatives. And look at this. 85 out of 100 Americans reach age 65 with only $250 in their pocket or less. My question is that you? What's your lifestyle right now? Now, back to our story. This pastor comes to Ron Blue, and he asks him if he's going to have enough. So he sits down and he asks him, so how much did you make in any given year? And he said $8,000, no more than that. And he said, so do you have any debt? And he said, no, I've never had any debt. I could never afford to borrow money on credit. I could never pay the interest, so I never had debt. And Ron said, well, at least that's a positive. You don't have any debt right now at 80. Ron asked, do you have any savings? To which the pastor replied, yeah, hold on, I wrote it down here. $250,000 in cash, CDs, and mutual funds, and $350,000 in other low-risk investments that I could get liquid in the next 90 days. So Ron did the math, and he said that's $600,000 accumulated by a man who never earned more than $8,000 a year. He stood up, shook his hand, he said, you don't need my advice, I need your advice. Whatever you're doing, you keep doing it. Now, I love that story because God is a God of freedom, and that freedom is available to all of us if we're willing to follow His plan. The average American in this area, however, doesn't follow that plan. The average household in this area, the demographics tell us, the average household makes just north of $100,000 a year. Stats tell us that the average household in this area will also spend 104% of the household income, which means in 2017, the average person along the 422 corridor, the average household has made just north of $100,000 and has spent $104,000 of their income. Meaning they made $100,000, they saved nothing, and they put $4,000 on credit. Debt has become so much a part of our culture that there's such a thing as good debt. You can go into any mall where there's a pet store and buy a dog on 90 days same as cash. Think about that. Can you imagine your great-grandmother financing a dog? Now, the reason #bless is such a hollow saying is that debt is not a blessing. For the 82 million pictures that have been taken, that have been tagged #bless, imagine an alternative. Imagine an alternative for your life where you own everything that is in the orbit of your life. Imagine the freedom that would come from that. Imagine the freedom that would come from the frugality and the discipline of following God's plan from the rest of your life here on out. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how to get out of debt, but I don't want you to beat yourself up. This is not like a shame festival. We're going to read a passage that's hard to hear. But you need to understand that this is like harsh love from God for us, because He knows what's at stake and He knows how hard it is to change behavior. But please don't mistake this for condemnation. He wants freedom. He doesn't want to make it worse. Proverbs chapter 6 is a passage that I want to read. It starts in verse 1. My son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, meaning you've gotten into debt, if you have shaken hands and pledged with a stranger, you have been trapped by what you said and snared by the words of your mouth, do this, my son, to free yourself, since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands. Here's my advice. Go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor no rest. Allow no sleep to your eyes and no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler. Regain the urgency to go to the ant, you sluggard, and consider its ways. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, but it has within itself the fortitude and the self-discipline to say, I need to prepare for the future. It stores its provisions in the summer and gathers its food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. The whole point of the Proverbs, talking about money, is for us to get angry. Look at what this passage says in verse 3. It says, go to the point of exhaustion. The word exhaustion, and this is in Hebrew, has the connotations of throwing yourself down. It's a powerful image of humbling yourself and throwing yourself down. I love how the Message, the paraphrase version of the Message translates, says, dear friend, if you've gone into hock, don't waste a minute. Get yourself out of that mess. I think, and what it's trying to say is, if you've gone into debt, there are three things we have to do. Number one, we have to truly humble ourselves. Now, before I continue any further, I want you to get a number in your mind. And the number is how much debt that you have. Okay? Now, I don't want you to just include credit card debt. I want you to include all of it. I want you to include your mortgage. For those of you that own businesses, I want you to include your business debt. I want the whole thing in there. The total number that you owe creditors, I want that firmly planted in your mind right now. The question is, how do we get rid of that number? The first thing that we have to do is we have to truly humble ourselves. You're going to have to swallow your pride. We're going to have to downgrade our lifestyle. We're going to have to go without. We're going to have to live within our means. We're going to have to sell stuff. It is humbling to climb out of debt. We have to acknowledge that's the number, and I'm sick of it. I'm angry. I am not going to put up with this anymore. Second, we have to develop a frugal lifestyle, like great-grandma. Told you this story a million times. My friend Carl is the president of a bank. We're at lunch one time. He said, I was at a Christmas party. This is when we were having lunch. I was at a Christmas party, and it was at an employee's house. And he said it was kind of weird. You know, I'm walking through the house, and I'm looking at the $80,000 kitchen and the $30,000 worth of stuff that's in the family room and dining room, and I'm walking around, and I'm thinking to myself, this is odd. I'm their boss. I know what they make. I make twice as much as any person in this room. Yet when you go to my house, I have 2 rooms that are completely empty. Because we have made a commitment as a family, we're not going to put anything in our house that we don't actually own. Larry Burkett says this. He said, we spend the first 5 to 7 years trying to attain the same standard of living as our parents, only it took them 35 years to do it. That's why the third thing that we need to do is we need to get off our butts. That's what this passage is saying. Get off your buttocks. How can you sleep in? How can you sleep in when you need to get out there and you need to find some extra money? A friend of mine years ago has lost his job, and so his wife went out, and he was telling me that he couldn't find a job, and I just found that odd. I was like, here's the newspaper. Here's monster.com. You can't find a job. Oh, just not a job that is at your level. Meanwhile, his wife went out and got a second job. And I asked him, I was like, what do you do all day when your wife is working 2 jobs? And he said, I mainly cook and garden. Cook and garden. Listen to the intensity of these words again. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty is going to come on you. So, we're going to talk about what it means to truly be blessed, not just financially, but in all areas of our lives. And so, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at scriptures that are going to challenge us, that are truly going to change us and help us truly be blessed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask things of ourselves that will be stretches for us. And the first commitment I want to ask you to make this morning is I want you to commit that today that you are going to attack and pay off all your debt. All of it. Gone. May take you 5 years, may take you 10 years, it may take you 15 years, 12, 9, doesn't matter what it is. But you are going to say, I am not going to live with the American assumption that living with debt up to my eyeballs is normal. It's not. It robs us of our freedom. And so here's what I want to do. I want us to imagine that we each have our own team of financial counselors. And we get to pick who's going to be on our team of financial counselors, okay? Now, the team that we're going to assemble here this morning that's going to meet with you this afternoon, and you're going to pull out all your bank sheets, all your statements, all of your spending for the last year, all of your accounts. The 3 people that are going to be on your team that are showing up today at 2 o'clock at your house are Jesus, Dave Ramsey, and your great-grandma. Okay? What advice do you think the 3 of them would look at you and share if they met you at your house at 2 o'clock today, you have that number in your mind, what would they say? Here's exactly what we know that they would say. Number one, stop going into debt. They would show up at 2 o'clock today and they'll say, don't worry about making us lunch. We're going to make lunch for you. And they get there and they take all your cards, they heat up your oven at 350, and they stick them in. You're going to have turkey today for lunch. That's what we're doing. The day of paying for things with debt is over. Again, don't shame yourself. Get angry. Number two, save $1,000 fast. They would all say the reason you need $1,000 in the bank account is because you're going to go off and pay off your debt. If you don't have money in savings, what's going to happen when your water heater breaks? What's going to happen when you have a repair for your car? Here's a question. Do you have $1,000 in the bank right now, liquid, ready to go? How old are you? Are you truly telling me, if you're 30 years of age, since you graduated from college at 22, the last 8 years, you have not been able in 8 years to put away $1,000? They also say that we need to have 3 to 6 months in savings and reserve. For those of you who are like, I got $1,000 in the bank. Okay, do you have $70,000 in the bank? Number three, we need to tithe. One of the first things people do when they're like, I'm going to get out of debt, is they stop tithing, and they realize it actually gets worse. And the reason Dave Ramsey, your grandma, and Jesus would say that's a terrible idea is that the reason you got into debt in the first place is that God wasn't in control of your finances. And the only reason to get out is to make a commitment to put Him first. You need His blessings. Number four, rank your debts from smallest to largest and pay the smallest one using the debt snowball. I know some of you, your eyes are rolling. You're like, this is so elementary. But you have $110,000 of business debt. Isn't it funny the people that give the best financial advice are broke? Number five, create a monthly budget. Grandma would say, you know those envelopes you got in the desk? Get them out. Because what we're going to do is we're going to have one envelope for eating out, one envelope for groceries, one envelope for gas, and we're going to laugh and say, Grandma, that's why we don't use that. She's like, that's why you're broke. If you don't use that, you need some other system. John Maxwell said, a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. You want to know the number one group in this room that needs to budget? It's not the people who are absolutely desperate financially. It's people that earn $150,000 a year and more. These are the people who don't have to worry about expenses. They have all the money that they need, which is all the more reason to track where the money is going. Read the Gospels this week, and you tell me what Jesus says about money. Story after story about a group of guys that are given some money who are told to put it to work, and then the owner comes back and asks, give an account for what you did for your money. $1 million or more will pass through all of our hands in our lifetime, or more. We will have to give an account for how we spent that money. Every single penny of it. Every penny of it. So when was the last time you created a monthly budget and every dollar had a name? Number 6, they would tell us, you know what? We don't have a lot of time. It's 3 o'clock. We got to go. The Eagles are playing at what time? You need to live on beans and rice. Oh, but you don't understand. Business lunches, and I like to eat out, and not anymore, because we just melted your cards. That's gone. Every year I go through and I rebid everything that I can possibly rebid. And I think to myself, there's no possible way I'm going to save money this year like I did last year. Last year I saved roughly $300. And I go to every single thing that can be renegotiated. Mortgage, life insurance, car insurance, homeowner's insurance, cable, cell phones, anyone who provides a service for me. I go out and get 3 to 5 bids. My hunch is, I think by the end of November, minimum $300, probably $500 want to cut. I hate Comcast. Sorry, you can't. I'm sorry, I should not have said that. Now we're going to have to cut that. There's going to be this long bleep that's online and that sort of thing. But man, every time, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones. We regret to not have told you of this great deal that's going on. That never, ever happens. Car insurance, everything. The whole thing. And the thing is, that's what my great-grandma would have done. My great-grandma was frugal. She would not have put up with that. But we just do it. I don't even worry about it. Too stressed. I don't want to worry about it. And like, more importantly, some of you are like, why would I even worry about $300 to $500? I'll tell you. I got 8 kids right now in Haiti. I'm going to die by the end of the year. That's why. Because we're disciples. Number 7, go get a part-time job. My grandfather had 4 jobs. He was a police officer. He did security for another place. He did security for the bog. I mean, he was a worker. Can I tell you something that happened? And I know you're probably here today, so I apologize because I didn't ask your permission to tell this story. So this summer it was crazy. Kids going off to college and all different places. And I woke up one morning, get ready to go to church. I walk out, and there's no car. I'm like, where's my car? And so I'm like, I don't want to ride my bike because I don't want to show up all sweaty because I'm already like not like the Vogue fashion model of dress anyway. If I show up with just drenched in sweat. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna call an Uber. So I love Uber. Wherever I'm speaking or traveling or whatever, I'll hit it up an Uber, and I love Uber. Anyway, so I call up an Uber. It's going to be here in 5 minutes. And so I start walking down the road, and the car pulls up, and I wave. And on the, do you guys use Uber? Okay, all right. And they see it's me, I see it's her. And so I get in the car. She looks at me, and she's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm going to church. It's a mix-up. I didn't have my car and that sort of thing. She was like, you're my pastor. And along the way, she shared that she's a single mom, and she has some free weekends. And so what she wanted to do is she wanted to, the following year, she wanted to take her daughter to Disney World. And so in her free time, she started driving an Uber in order to do that. Don't you love that story? I told her, I have so much respect for you. So much respect for you for what you're doing. Go to the point of exhaustion, it says. Are you exhausted? For a lot of you, I'm telling you, there's way more in your tank than you realize. There's way more creativity and ingenuity. The ability to go out and create wealth. Why not do it? And that's why number 8 is just pray for creativity and wisdom. I promise you, I've seen this in our church over and over again. If you begin praying that God would give you creativity and passion and excitement to truly meet the needs of others and turn that side hustle into a way you're actually providing value to other people's lives, you watch what happens. God loves answering the prayers of people who are willing to go to the point of exhaustion to get out of debt. I've seen it time and time again. So that's what Grandma, Dave Ramsey, and Jesus would tell us to do to get out of debt. I'm convinced of it. So I want to ask everybody here to do 3 things. Number 1, eyeball to eyeball, look at me. I want you to commit right now that that number that is in your head, it's gone. You're going to put together a plan, and you're going to eliminate it. All of it. Consumer debt, mortgage debt, any business, anything. It's gone. Number 2, for those of you who have not done this yet, I want to encourage you to sign up for Financial Peace University. Starts on January 7th. 2 people that I respect immensely in our congregation that have followed these steps and have 0 debt are going to be leading the class, and it's so encouraging and so helpful. And I would love for you to be a part of that. And number 3, I want you to commit to be here for the next 3 weeks as we talk about what it means to truly be blessed. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for what you're doing in our minds and in our hearts. I pray that you would take away the fear that some might have of maybe for the first time acknowledging what an issue this is. And God, I pray that collectively people would become angry. Angry because they see what is the roadblock to true blessing. God, give us a clear picture of our futures, blessed by you, free, unencumbered. The ability to live and make decisions not based on whether or not we can afford it, but based upon obedience to your call. Bring freedom, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for watching today's message. For more practical resources to help you and your family, please go to Brian's website at brianjones.com.